There are new developments now in a legal fight over pictures of a dead Osama bin Laden. A watchdog group filing a Freedom of Information request to force the release of images taken by U.S. forces who killed the terrorist last year. The Obama administration blocking it. Now the case is moving through the courts. Tom Fitton is president of Judicial Watch. He was in court yesterday when some of these arguments were heard by the appeals court. Tom, how are you? And good morning to you. I want to go through. I'm very intrigued by this. Make your best case. Why should we see him?
Well, the law requires their release. President Obama almost immediately said we don't want to release the photos because we don't want to be seen as spiking the football. Well, our Freedom of Information Act doesn't have any exemption for spiking the football. And he may think these photos are politically controversial, but we don't not follow the law just because the president is uncomfortable with the results of following.
Just a matter-of-fact question. What do you think we would gain if we had access to the photos?
Well, we gain information about one of the most important military victories in the war against terror. And the American people have a right to these documents under law, and we gain further respect for our rights under law. We have a right to know about this raid and details within reason about the raid. And certainly photos of the deceased bin Laden, like even the funeral of his funeral on the aircraft carrier, that's basic information. It's not terribly controversial. And that needs to be documented for the historical record. You just can't withhold them because you don't want to release them. That's not the way the law works.
I know you're not an attorney, but you were in the courtroom yesterday, and you said to me during the commercial break that you were screaming to yourself inside of your own head when you were hearing some of the questions by the judges. But you're looking for 52 images that go public, and many of them, the attorney for your side argued yesterday that the images on the aircraft carrier should be made public. That seemed to be the root of his argument. The judge is saying, look, these images could be used for propaganda, and I heard what you referenced in your first answer there. The president said this on 60 Minutes a while ago. It's important for us to make sure that very graphic photos of somebody who was shot in the head are not floating around as an incitement to additional violence or as a propaganda tool. That's not who we are. We don't trot out this stuff as trophies, as you just referred to. Propaganda. How do you address that argument?
Well, what other things can be used by propaganda by the terrorists who don't like us? The law requires the release of this information, and this would be the first time, as best I could tell, that the government won't give the American people things they're entitled to, documents they're entitled to, because the terrorists would be upset about it. One of the judges yesterday referenced the Benghazi video as causing the death of the ambassador to Libya. So, the judge, it seems to me, was misinformed about that.
Which has been debunked, and I'd imagine that judge...
And it shows maybe you can't believe the president's analysis here, and his analysis may be cogent, but it's not the law. His word is not law. The law is these documents need to be released.
Okay.
In our view, we hope the court doesn't buy into this, all of this noise about the riots and things.
When he was CIA director, Leon Panetta said they would be released eventually. I don't know if that's weeks or months or even years. What do you think that answer is?
Well, I think they will be released eventually. We hope the court requires their release. But, even buying into the government's argument, the further in time we get away from the incident, the less controversial the photos are. So their argument weakens over time, that's for sure.
What about the lawyer arguing forcefully for the photos of the burial photos in the back of the aircraft carrier in the Arabian Sea? Are those considered to be at least less harmful or less offensive, or what's the logic there, Tom?
Well, buying into the government's argument that, these photos are controversial will cause concern, the gruesome photos, if that's true, maybe they withhold the gruesome photos. But certainly photos of bin Laden's body wrapped up, or photos of the funeral service that was provided to him, and descriptions of which were produced in detail to Judicial Watch in a separate Freedom of Information Act request. We already know what happened. Why not have photos documenting what happened? We have a right to this information. I don't understand why the government says, well, you don't need it, it might cause controversy, and therefore our laws requiring their release should be overruled. We don't rewrite FOIA law that way. If they don't like it, they can go get the laws changed by Congress. But we need to follow our principles of American transparency and accountability and get this information according to the law, not according to the whims of the terrorists.
Okay, we'll find out in a couple months if you win your case. Thank you, Tom. Tom Fitton with us from Washington. 20 minutes before the hour.